The season of '76 opened at home against the New York Giants. George Allen has never lost an opening game in the NFL.
Guys, listen, this is the opportunity we all been waiting for. This is what it's all about. Two things. Don't worry about the Giants. Everybody pull together and be tough.
The Washington defense was physical indeed, with a safety sack of New York's Craig Morton. The offense sprang to life with the potent combination of quarterback Bill Kilmer to flying Frank Grant. Grant scored on a 50-yard breakaway. Then Kilmer watched as New York came roaring right back in a game with a season's worth of excitement. The Giants had lost 10 straight to Washington, but now they saw a chance to end that infamous streak. Washington lost momentum, then the lead, and finally its quarterback. A deep gash on the bridge of Kilmer's nose seemed to end Redskin hopes. But number 17 has overcome much greater obstacles in his career. Kilmer simply asked to be patched up. Then he went out to add another chapter to his legend. With less than 2 minutes left and his team behind 17-12, Kilmer drove Washington to victory.
With appropriate color and hoopla, the NFL's 57th season opened with sunny skies and bright hopes in 13 locations around the nation. One of them was Robert F. Kennedy Stadium in Washington, D.C., where the hometown Redskins met the challenge of the much improved and newly confident New York Giants. Redskins, too, have made some big changes with the addition of some highly priced superstars like Miami's safety Jake Scott and a new running back tandem of Calvin Hill and John Riggins. But aside from unending cash reserves, Washington's main ingredient for victory is their coach, irrepressible George Allen. In 10 seasons as a head coach, Allen has never lost an opening game. This fact, coupled with the Giants' dismal past history in games with the Redskins, loomed large as the Washington Redskins met the New York Giants in the NFL Game of the Week. Feels the running game will decide the outcome, plus allow the defense to rest. To do it, he purchased Riggins and Hill to team with Mike Thomas, a devastating troika of setbacks. But in the first quarter, they were eaten up alive by the Giants' swarming defense. On their next offensive series, Craig Morton underthrew Walker Gillette, and Ken Houston accepted the gift and returned it to the Giant 19. With the quarter almost over, this was Washington's first foray into Giant territory, and fittingly, on a day where defense dominated, their all-pro strong safety, Ken Houston, had provided the spark. With the acquisition of Jake Scott at the free safety position, the Redskins possibly have the finest set of safeties in the entire NFL. Kilmer wasted no time exploiting the break. Off a play fake, he found Riggins behind Van Pelt, and Washington was 13 yards deeper into Giant territory. But 3 plays later, they were still there when on third down, New York's Jim Stanky made a great save on a pass intended for Frank Grant in the end zone. The Redskins, like the Giants, had wasted a great scoring opportunity and were forced to settle for 3 points from Mark Mosley. The game was tied at 3. Now in the second quarter, Washington's defense again came up with the ball when Morton threw directly into the arms of cornerback Pat Fisher. Interceptions were Morton's big problem last year, and it was hoped the addition of Zonka would help alleviate this tendency. Once again, Kilmer went quickly on the attack, getting a nice run up the middle from Mike Thomas. Thomas, last year's rookie surprise, has beaten out Calvin Hill for a starting job, and today far overshadowed highly heralded John Riggins. 2 plays later, Kilmer fired a strike over the middle to Roy Jefferson for a second straight first down to the New York 35. Jefferson, a 12-year vet, is a starter again due to the injury that has put Charlie Taylor out for the season. As usual, Kilmer used his backs beautifully as receivers today. Mike Thomas got behind Pat Hughes for a reception and was off and running until he dropped the ball. Bobby Brooks recovered Thomas' mistake on the 3-yard line, and Washington's best drive of the day, in fact the best offensive series by either team so far, was wiped out by the fumble. One look at Mike Thomas' face reveals how he felt about it. Despite consolation from his coach, Thomas was a study of abject frustration. Up half 100. But when a penalty forced Morton into 2nd and 17, he went to the air. Walker Gillette looked open, but Jake Scott was vintage Jake Scott. Scott was downed inside the Giant 45. Great field position that the Redskins would take advantage of, although not right away. Forced to punt, Mike Bragg hit one to brag about. Watch as his punt lands inside the 5 and actually backs up before being downed by George Allen's extra special team. Eddie Brown kept the ball from going into the end zone. The Giants took over on their own 4, and a great play by Dave Butts reduced that to the 2. Butts' big play was critical, for Morton would now try high-risk 2nd and 3rd down passes from his own end zone. It is rare indeed when Zonka actually loses yardage, and the 2 yards lost here were important. Here's how it happened. Watch Butts, the 4th Redskin from the left, as he goes over John Hicks' attempted cut block to nail Zonka. Morton's 2nd and 12 pass fell incomplete, and on 3rd down, Morton fell. With the heels of his shoes nearly on the goal line, Morton discovered that 36-year-old Ron McDowell can still swoop in with the best. The Redskins had 2 points and trailed by the unlikely score of 10-5. And on the next play, after getting the ball on a free kick, Billy Kilmer and Frank Grant got the Redskins their first lead in the game. Kilmer to Grant covered 53 yards, and Washington led 12-10. Looking at the play again reveals that 2 Giants had a shot at stopping Grant, but Clyde Powers missed a diving attempt, and Grant simply outran Bobby Brooks' tackling angle. Frank Grant was repeating his 1975 success story. Last season, Grant was a much more than adequate fill-in for Roy Jefferson, who was hobbled much of the season. Its next possession, 1 completion did what 4 on the previous drive could not. A 62-yard bomb to Walker Gillette had the Giants in front 17-12 with less than 5 minutes to go. We now begin another remarkable chapter in the Billy Kilmer story. The Redskins were down by 5 with less than 5 minutes to go, and then apparently lost their gutty quarterback on a vicious sack by Dave Gallagher and Jack Gregory. Kilmer would rise ever so slowly from the collision, for the crack of the sack had split open his nose. That he was able to leave the field under his own power is not surprising, for Billy Kilmer has walked away from worse. In 1963, Kilmer was involved in a near-fatal automobile accident, but 1 year later was back playing football. His entire career has been dotted with physical adversity, but Billy Kilmer always comes back. Today would be no exception. On the sideline, trainer Joe Cuso and assistant Bubba Tyer worked quickly to put Kilmer's nose back in its rightful place. Kilmer credited Tyer with getting him back in the game when he said, "Bubba is better than any cut man in the fight game. Without him, I could not have played any more today." And without Billy Kilmer's heart, Billy Kilmer would not have played any more today. In 1975, Kilmer was awarded the George Halas Most Courageous Player Award. And today's mishap is one more example of why he is so deserving of such an honor. Just about the time Kilmer was ready to return to action, Eddie Brown turned in another special team play. His 45-yard punt return set the stage for another heroic Billy Kilmer performance. Brown set Kilmer up on the Giant 42 with a minute and a half to go. And though the Giants knew he would be passing, and he was constantly harassed, Kilmer hung tough throughout 2 incompletions. Penalty, and this completion to Larry Brown brought the ball to the Giant 24. But Kilmer would miss his mark on his next 3 passes. And so the game came down to 1 play. 4th and 10 from the Giant 24 with less than 60 ticks to go. On the excruciatingly crucial play, Billy Kilmer had done it again. His pass to Roy Jefferson carried to the 5-yard line. And with so much already achieved, it must have been preordained that Kilmer would finish the job. 49 seconds remained as the Giant bench watched the touchdown they must have known was coming. Kilmer's touchdown pass to Mike Thomas put the Redskins over the top, 19-17. 2 things came out of this game. One, though the Giants were disappointed, they are definitely a much improved team in 1976 and nearly beat one of the division's strong boys today. The other point is that George Allen's over-the-hill gang is not yet over the hill. In particular, one William Orland Kilmer.
But it was left to the old pros of the Washington Redskins to provide last Sunday's most thrilling moment.
Guys, listen, this is the opportunity we all been waiting for. This is what it's all about. 2 things. Don't worry about the Giants. Everybody pull together and be physical.
In 10 years of coaching, George Allen has never lost an opening game. But when Craig Morton passed the New York Giants into the lead, Allen's unbeaten streak seemed in jeopardy. Touchdown passes to Walker Gillette and Ray Rhodes, number 82, gave the Giants a 17-12 lead late in the 4th quarter. Washington's chances for victory seemed remote when quarterback and team leader Bill Kilmer was injured and forced to the sidelines. But for Bill Kilmer, there is only one way to leave a football field, and that is as a winner. With his face stitched and bandaged, Kilmer returned to action with 49 seconds left to play and threw a perfect strike to Mike Thomas to win the game for the Redskins.
The New York Giants are a good football team, and they had a lot of, they came here to play and to beat us, and we knew it, and we had to rise to the occasion. I had a feeling all week it might come down to a close game like this, and it was going to matter of who was going to outgut the other guy. I think that the Giants stayed in there, played a great game too, and it was a great game for the fans. I think the guy that should get the game ball is Bubba Tyer. He stopped, this thing was bleeding so bad and blood was in my eyes and in my mouth, and I told him, I said, you got to stop this bleeding. And he went over there, he was better than any cut man in pro boxing. He got that thing all stopped up, and from there it was just a matter of being able to connect and picking out the right guy, that's all.
Next week, Washington did get better. Against the Seattle Seahawks, Kilmer threw for 3 touchdowns, including his first spiral since 1967. This time, the Redskins would not require last-second heroics. They marched to the steady beat of the offensive line. During 1976, these men would open the way for the most rushing yards in Redskin history. Against Seattle, Mike Thomas followed his leader to a 31-7 Washington victory.
Number 71, Steve Niehaus of Notre Dame, was a somewhat higher draft pick. In fact, he is the man around whom the Seahawks hope to build a defense. Unfortunately, they'll have to wait a while. Last week, some of the Seahawks needed a helping hand just to stay on their feet. Washington Redskin coach George Allen made sure the over-the-hill gang stayed pointed in the right direction. Number 72, Dyron Talbert, showed how to collapse guard, fullback, and halfback single-handedly, while the fledgling Seahawks at times made matters even easier for the Redskins' wily old defense. Billy the Kid Kilmer became Billy the Band-Aid. But no matter, Jurgensen didn't throw with his belly, and Kilmer doesn't throw with his nose. Mike Thomas had another big game with 2 touchdowns and 143 yards rushing, but Kilmer's pinpoint passes were just as important. Frank Grant's tough catch accounted for another Redskin touchdown, while Kilmer's third scoring pass went to the man who just might be the most valuable of all the recent Allen acquisitions, tight end Gene Fugit, number 84. In all, the over-the-hill Redskins scored 31 points, while holding the not-yet-over-the-hump Seahawks to 7.
In Week 3, Dick Vermeil had his Philadelphia Eagles fired up, but the beat went on. While the running game set up a 3rd straight win, Washington had to work overtime. Mark Mosley's kick in sudden death salvaged a victory that did not come without pain. Bill Kilmer was still taking his lumps. A bruised shoulder added to the growing list of ailments which even number 17 couldn't ignore.
The third Monday night contest of 1976 was a study in contrast. The veteran Redskins were seeking their 5th playoff berth in 6 years as head coach George Allen went for career victory number 100. On the other hand, Philadelphia, led by rookie head coach Dick Vermeil, was merely seeking respectability. They found much more. specifically a hero named Hogan, who riddled Washington for his first 100-yard game. But he wasn't alone, as the Eagles' ground attack tallied 252 yards on the night, as the Eagles jumped out to a 10-0 lead. On defense, the Eagles were equally dominating, ravaging Redskin runners and passers alike. Then came the rain, and with it, an opportunity for the Skins. For while the Eagles moved the ball with ease, Washington's defense refused to break, intercepting 2 Mike Barella passes in their own end zone. Finally, Redskins linebacker Brad Dusick's larcenous hands latched onto a loose ball, and Washington's first touchdown. With the score tied at 10 in the fourth quarter, Mike Thomas ran 27 yards for a score. And with the Eagles' offense rendered impotent by turnovers, a Skins victory seemed likely. Still, Vermeil's young squad had time for one play and a shot at overtime. One play proved enough. Charlie Smith's 41-yard touchdown tied matters at 17 and kept the country awake for overtime. Eagle optimism at the prospect of a second consecutive win vanished, however, when Mike Barella suffered his 5th interception at the hands of Eddie Brown. From there, it took little time for ex-Eagle Mark Mosley to finish the job. Anything but over the hill, the 76 Redskins went to the playoffs for the 5th time in 6 seasons, while the Eagles were still a couple of years away from the top of the hill.
Their quarterback hurting, the Redskins suffered too. Back-to-back losses were topped off with a game-winning flea flicker by the Kansas City Chiefs. Ever-present critics were quick to predict the season's surrender for Washington's old men. To this, the general said, nuts.
On the contrary, Kansas City's opponents do a whole lot of scoring. Last week, former Heisman Trophy winner Joe Theismann tiptoed past beleaguered Chiefs for this touchdown and a first-half lead. But despite their relatively sound offense, the aging Redskin defense has become increasingly vulnerable. And despite their porous defense, the Kansas City air game remains first-rate. Incredibly enough, the Chiefs lead the AFC in passing yardage. Last week, Mike Livingston threw for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns, including this 33-yarder to tight end Walter White. But with less than 2 minutes remaining, Washington still led by 4. So the Chiefs reached back to their 1962 playbook. The flea flicker is to football what the Model T is to the nation's highways. You see it every now and then, but it's hard to believe it still really works. But last week in Washington, the Chiefs made it work for a 33-30 upset victory over the troubled Redskins. In Washington, the Detroit Lions also scored on the long bomb. This one from Joe Reed to Ray Jarvis. Unfortunately, Detroit was down 20-0 with less than 1 minute left in the game at the time. When the outcome was still in doubt, Lion execution had not been quite so crisp. In fact, the Detroit offense flirted with disaster all day long, with 5 turnovers and numerous other false starts. The Lions' sloppy play finally did them in when the Washington defense started policing up mistakes to key a 20-7 Redskin victory.
Against Detroit, Brown and his blockers returned the opening kickoff 67 yards to begin a 20-7 Washington victory. The Redskins were back on track and not a moment too soon. Next, they faced a Monday night monsoon and their first must game of the season. Allen told his men, "This is Redskin weather. A perfect time to ambush their Eastern Division rivals, the high-flying St. Louis Cardinals." As usual, special teams were on the spot, and Mosley gave Washington an early lead. Still, the rains came as the showdown became a wallow through the mire. The elusive ball changed hands like a greased pig at the county fair. There were 13 fumbles in all, including an all-time record 8 recovered by Washington. In the midst of confusion, a coach looked to his secret weapon for victory. The special teams and Eddie Brown responded with a marvelous work and a wonder. Three men together overcame the elements and St. Louis as Washington stayed alive in the East and breathed a sigh of relief. Washington traveled west in the season's 9th week to meet the San Francisco 49ers. Joe Theismann started and had his best day as a pro. Frank Grant caught 11 passes for 200 yards. Theismann scrambled and threw for over 300 yards. And Gene Fugit caught 3 touchdown passes. Then, with time running out, number 7 held for another game-winning field goal by Mark Mosley.
A celebration likewise took place in San Francisco, where 49ers fans were treated to a virtuoso performance by an emerging star. Against the Redskins, third-year pro Delvin Williams enjoyed his finest hour in the NFL, accounting for 279 total yards and 18 points as a runner and pass receiver. An incredible offensive performance. With 762 rushing yards to his credit, Williams is well within the reach of a 1,000-yard season, a feat well worth calling home about. But while Williams rested between exhibitions, another third-year NFLer, Redskin quarterback Joe Theismann, seemed intent on wrestling away the spotlight. Theismann likewise enjoyed one of his best days ever, hitting on 20 of 32 pass attempts, including 3 touchdown tosses to tight end Gene Fugit. But neither Theismann's air attack nor Williams' ground thrusts could resolve the matter. So late in period 4, Theismann held while Mark Mosley tipped the scale toward the Skins. Washington's upset kept their slender playoff hopes alive, while the slumping 49ers suffered their second consecutive narrow defeat. The headlines aren't good for San Francisco.
Just 1 week later, the smiles had faded into somber concern. Washington was in Rutherford, New Jersey, home of the winless Giants. Through 3 quarters, the Redskins could do no better than stay even. Then it was time for someone else to celebrate a last-second game winner. Prophets of doom once again counted the Redskins out. 4 of their 5 remaining games were on the road, and now they were 2 full games behind St. Louis.
Their opening day loss to Washington, many of the New York Giants vowed not to shave until they beat the Redskins. Considering Washington had won 11 straight from New York, their weight and their beards appeared to be a long-term situation. With perennial backup Norm Snead at quarterback and newcomers replacing injured regulars at several key positions, mild-mannered head coach John McVay hardly seemed the candidate to end the hold evangelical George Allen had over the Giants. But with just 4 minutes, 32 seconds left in what was a dead-heated duel between field goal kickers, the battle was decided by the littlest Giant of all. 5' 9" Joe Dinello attempted the longest field goal of his career, a distance of 50 yards. Dinello's success gave the Giants a 12-9 lead, and to some long-suffering New Yorkers, it must have been the most important field goal since Pat Summerall's 49-yarder beat the Browns for the championship in Yankee Stadium 2 decades ago. But a first victory for New York was not yet secure. Washington drove downfield with 41 seconds showing. George Allen disdained a chip shot, which would have sent the game into overtime, and had Joe Theismann go for the winning touchdown. From the 7, a blitz by number 53 rookie Harry Carson forced Theismann to hurry his throw, which was picked off by Jim Stanky in the end zone. The longest losing streak in the Giants' 52-year history had ended against New York's fiercest rivals. For the Redskins, any hopes of a playoff berth were gone, crushed by the stunning upset. History was made on this Sunday in the Meadowlands of East Rutherford, New Jersey. A first victory in a new stadium, the first in the NFL for new coach John McVay, and the first ever against chief tormentor George Allen. In this season of absurdities for New York fans, the Giants haven't permitted a touchdown for 10 quarters. Unfortunately, their offense hasn't scored one in 18 periods of play. No matter. Though their perfect season came to an end, the New York Giants are as they used to be, winners, for 1 week at the very least.
In Busch Stadium, the confident Cardinals were sure to eliminate their nemesis once and for all. But someone forgot to tell the Redskins they didn't have a chance. Senator Len Hawes and the offensive line blew open huge holes, and Mike Thomas went wild. Thomas found nothing but wide open spaces as he darted for 195 yards, the most ever by a Redskin running back in a single game. For the second time in a crucial confrontation, St. Louis had fallen, and Washington was ready for a final push to the playoffs.
Unlike Dallas, the St. Louis Cardinals have shown no signs of turning stale. And against the Redskins, Terry Metcalf, number 21, demonstrated the quick strike potential of the NFC's top-rated offense. But at this time of the season, even the slickest teams skate on the thin ice that borders the wild and woolly and the downright dangerous. Thus, a Cardinal screen pass that eventuated into a flea flicker from their own end zone can be termed suicidal. However, it was not soft-headed plays, but a solid Redskin defense that denied St. Louis and sacked Jim Hart in crucial situations. Even behind a patchwork offensive line, nifty Mike Thomas, number 22, has been the wheel horse of the Redskin attack. Thomas rushed for 195 yards, scored their lone touchdown, and gave them a lead from which they were never headed. Trailing 16-10, St. Louis made a belated comeback bid on the wings of a Jim Hart pass to Mel Gray. Gray's heroics fell just short of the tying touchdown as St. Louis dropped their second straight to Washington. George Allen's tired remnants and retreads keep hanging in, losing some they should win and winning some they should lose. But in the end, when a title or a wild card berth is in the offing, these salty old dogs are yapping and howling in the final scramble for that Super Bowl bone.
After 11 grueling weeks, it was time to relax and pose for a team picture at Redskin Park. The confident Redskins were ready for the task that lay ahead. 3 games were left. To make the playoffs, Washington would have to win them all. They couldn't wait to get started. At home against the Eagles, Bill Kilmer was healthy again and back bombing to Frank Grant. While offense was rolling up the score, defensive captain Chris Handberger, number 55, was playing his favorite game of takeaway in a 24-0 whitewash of Philly. Hail to the Redskin defense. Ever since George Allen arrived in '71, defense has been the cornerstone of 6 consecutive winning seasons.
The Redskins set up a summit meeting with Dallas this week by bruising and burying the hapless Jets, 37-16. When number 84, Gene Puget, turned around number 47, rookie Tommy Marvaso, he turned around the Redskin offense as well. Recently, the smoldering Washington offense has been blistering hot. Everything is so simpatico, in fact, that Billy Kilmer resurrected a favorite old play, the post pattern, to almost forgotten Roy Jefferson, number 80. George Allen's Redskins are resilient. So often they are knocked down and prematurely counted out. But they always shake off the cobwebs, take a whiff of ammonia, and wait for the final bell to ring.
In New York Shea Stadium, 43 men were joined by 2,500 Washington fans. They had traveled to wish their team the very best. This tribute was not lost on George Allen. He pointed out their dedication to each Redskin star. Surrounded by support, Washington towed in and teed off on the unfortunate New York Jets. All afternoon, Washington defense took away and turned the ball over to Bill Kilmer. the running game, Mike Thomas switched to blocking, and former Jet John Riggins took over. This had been a long season for number 44. After a well-publicized signing, Riggins found some rough going. But he never stopped trying, always knowing that his time would come. Now, against his former teammates, he broke loose. Riggins gained over 100 yards and scored twice against his old buddies. John Riggins was a Redskin now, and the wandering fans celebrated a robust 37-16 Washington victory. One test remained, but first it was time to say thanks and applaud a group of true believers.
There's no hiding the fact. Because St. Louis had beaten New York earlier in the day, the Washington Redskins had to whip Dallas or be relegated to a loser's role outside the league's playoff structure for the second straight year. But in the third minute of the third quarter, Roger Staubach passed to rookie wide receiver Butch Johnson for a spectacular touchdown bomb. It gave Dallas a lead it looked like would last, for the Doomsday defense was on the brink of salting the game away. With Doomsday dominating until late in the final quarter, Redskin hopes for the playoffs looked dim. Then, suddenly, Washington stormed 50 yards for a score. The catalyst was number 35, former Cowboy Calvin Hill, a forgotten man until today. Hill had replaced injured star Mike Thomas and seemingly put the Skins ahead with a touchdown run. But the play was recalled due to a holding penalty. So, on the very next center snap, Hill simply did it again. A few seconds later, Dyron Talbert tipped the pass that Dennis Johnson intercepted and took to the Dallas 3. And then, Washington wrapped it up on a run by yet another of their big-name free agents, John Riggins. In a 60-second fourth-quarter blitz, Washington had scored 2 touchdowns to defeat Dallas 27-14, and unbelievably for the many critics who had written them off, Washington's over-the-hill gang, not the St. Louis Cardinals, would be the NFC wild card representative in the playoffs. We were pronounced dead and buried several times, said Coach George Allen after the game. We're supposed to be too old and too slow, but age doesn't mean a thing. We always keep coming back. They say we don't have the talent, but we beat teams that are supposed to be better than we are, and they won't be in the playoffs. 20 other NFL squads peering in from the outside would have to agree.
In Dallas, the Washington Redskins approached their 14th game. A win would put them in the playoffs. A loss would end their season. In Texas, Cowboys are called winners, while they reserve another word for Redskins. It was true that Washington had never won in Texas Stadium, and there was no love lost on either side. Dallas fans waged their war with words, but one inspired more than it hurt.
Let's make them eat their words. Be physical. Come on. All right, baby, all right!
The game was hard fought and dead even until early in the second half. Bill Kilmer spotted a cowboy blitz and changed his play at the line. Then he prayed for enough time to get the ball away. Kilmer beat the blitz, and Mike Thomas set up a go-ahead score.
Come on now. Come on. No mistakes. No mistakes. Concentrate. Concentrate.
Punch it in there.
This is it. 3-yard line.
With the game on the line, an ex-cowboy waited his chance. Calvin Hill had arrived in Washington eager to play, but Mike Thomas's success kept him on the bench. Still, he stayed ready all year. Now, at the season's most critical point, he was sent in against his former teammate. Allen knew that each man had a part to play, and this was Calvin Hill's moment. Hill scored from the 5. When it was called back, he scored again from the 15. The Redskins were not to be denied as they went on to defeat Dallas and scored their first Texas Stadium triumph. It had been a long, hard climb back to the playoffs, but somehow the struggle made final victory taste all the sweeter. A very special moment for 43 men together.
George! God dang, it's good to be a Redskin! We did it when we had to! Yeah!
Just a great game for all of us. I'm so proud to be part of this team. You, a couple of y'all, counted us out. And I think it was just sweet for us to, and I'm talking about the 43 men, just hung together, played hard, and it's just one of the best victories we've had here in 6 years.
Yeah, we started off. Three cheers for the Redskins.